Post NASA, you met your current co-founders, Anand and Venki, and you joined them at Kosmix. What was the experience like?
Anand and Venki, all three of us are from IIT Madras. So they were starting this company, Kosmix. The idea was that the underlying search engine would not just understand your query, but understand what it is you were looking for. So the system should automatically understand that context. And it was for that innovation that Walmart acquired us. We actually are the founders of Walmart Labs. We came up with the name Walmart Labs.
And later on, you founded LocBox. And what was the experience like?
LocBox. And that platform allows small and medium-sized businesses to market themselves more effectively. And in early 2014, we were acquired by Square, the cash register company. At that juncture, it felt like I wanted to go back to my roots of starting something from scratch. Is there a data-driven way to find the most promising startups and invest in them? So that's how the idea for Rocketship was born. So we have invested more than $70 million in India, and we are very excited by our Indian investments.
If you were to pick one thing where Indian technology ecosystem has an edge over the rest of the world.
Every single global technology company has an India center. Indian talent becoming the driving force in a lot of these companies is finally coming out and saying, I have learned a lot in Apple or in Nvidia or in IBM, but now I want to take that learning and build a company on my own. So we are about to see an explosion of startups in every single aspect.
We had Sailesh Ramakrishnan on the podcast. Sailesh is the managing partner at Rocketship.vc, global VC fund notable for data-driven investment approach. Prior to Rocketship.vc, Sailesh was CTO and co-founder of LocBox, which got acquired by Square. Before that, Sailesh helped build Kosmix, which they sold to Walmart. During our conversation, we covered his upbringing in India, the motivations behind his move to the US, his journey into the tech world, love for NASA, how Rocketship invests, his excitement about India, one edge India has over others, and much more. Now I bring you Sailesh. Sailesh, so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shiva. It's fantastic to be a part of this.
Sailesh, you've had a very unique background and a professional journey, from being a NASA scientist, working as a AI scientist at NASA when AI was not a thing. Later on, you were an operator, you founded a company, sold a company successfully, and now you are spending your time at Rocketship, which has a unique investing approach, which we will cover in a bit. But to start off, Sailesh, we're really a byproduct of our environment. What really shaped you the most while growing up?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing that I think most of us of Indian origin credit is our family. I come from a family of really strong folks who are always believing in education and hard work. So from a very young age, we were trained to not just focus on studies, but focused on understanding things, read the newspaper, learn a lot more about what was going on in the world, and try to do something, beyond what it is that we see in our immediate surroundings. So my father really significantly changed his life from where he started to running one of the largest automobile plants in Chennai, in Madras. My mom, even at the later age, after after both of us were, in high school and college, she decided to go and get another degree in music because she was very passionate about music. So I come from a family where education and trying to do the best at something, whatever it is you're passionate about, was a very important aspect. And so my passion when I was in high school was started with computers, but even more specifically became about AI and intelligence. In fact, it's a little bit of a reverse compliment, but the reason I got interested in AI was because I wanted to understand how people became or were intelligent, because you wanted to understand this thing called intelligence. And my naive thinking at that time was that if you can try to figure out the artificial version of it, where you can try and make a computer become a little bit more intelligent, you would understand something about ourselves. Um, uh, and so that's how this interest in AI started way back in high school. I continued through college. I had the privilege to go to IIT Madras, which is the next step in that transformational journey. The IITs are a lot of fun and also a lot of rigor, and I learned a lot of many different things at IIT Madras. But the biggest opportunity I got was for me to be able to work on AI even in IIT. It was a very nascent sort of time in IIT where computers were just coming in. Most of the time, they were all mainframe computers. Personal computers were not that popular yet. And so that was the first time I got an opportunity to start working a little bit in AI. My bachelor's project was an expert system, which I was very excited by. But at the same time, it was also gave me a sense of the fact that there is a lot more to do here, because that expert system was at that time what's typically called a rule-based system. You create a bunch of rules, say, if this happens, then you do this. If that happens, then you do this. And so for that time, it was a very complex system, because there were thousands of rules. But by today's standard, that would be a very a toy or a joke kind of intelligent system. Anyways, so I got an opportunity to work with that, and that gave me the sort of the foundation to come here to the US to continue to study and sort of progress further in my goal of learning more about AI and machine learning, which is what brought me to the US. And the US had the advantage that when in India at that time we had very narrowly siloed educational paths. You're in a particular path, you continue on. Whereas in the US, one of the cool things that was happening was this concept of an interdisciplinary path, where you are combining, people from many different departments to come together to work on something as complex or as interesting as intelligence. So that was the opportunity that I got excited by, and I did a master's in a program called Intelligent Systems, which both brought together the applied version of engineering, but at the same time also taught a lot more about formal methods, computer science, how to sort of represent mathematical concepts or computer science concepts that related to intelligence. I then went on to work on my PhD at the University of Michigan, where there I got an even more advanced education in how to apply intelligence directly into robots. So one of the projects I worked there was this robot called NurseBot. It was a robotic nurse. At that time, one of the big challenges, and it continues to be so today, was that a population gets elderly, there are not enough people to take care of them. US does not have the similar cultural background that we have in India, where children or grandchildren take care of elderly parents. Here, seniors are expected to live on their own for a long period of time, and so the people wanted to create a robot that would help take care of them. Just very simply things like reminding them to take their medication, or making sure that if they needed a glass of water, to fetch a glass of water, or call for help in case they fall down or whatnot. So there were many basic things that this robot was expected to do. But at that time, robots were not capable of even doing those simple tasks. And so part of my research was to try and figure out how to bring that kind of intelligence to these nurse robots. And again, very exciting time. I really enjoyed that. But that's when I realized I got this opportunity to work at what at that time was arguably my dream job, which was to work at NASA. I have, since I was a kid, apart from that AI and intelligence interest that I was talking about, I've been a space science fiction buff for the longest time. From watching the TV shows by Carl Sagan about space, and even sort of the various Star Trek and Star Wars movies and whatnot. So I've always been a big fan, and so the opportunity to work at NASA, the opportunity to work with robots that go to space, to go to other planets, that was too good an opportunity to give up. So while continuing my PhD program, I came to NASA here in the in Silicon Valley. The research center here is called NASA Ames Research Center. So I came here to work on AI for the Mars rover project, where these rovers were trying to figure out what's called contingency planning, where you have a main plan, but something doesn't work right, or what you expect. Then you come up with an alternate plan. And so how to come up with alternate plans, and how to make sure that that these robots are safe, and so on. So that's what brought me to NASA. And like I said, I can go on about the rest of my career, but this part of the journey, this transformation started, like I said, with the foundation that my family gave me, with the sort of the acceleration that IIT gave me, IIT Chennai. And then finally, the sort of lifelong interest in AI and in computers and so on is what brought me to where I am.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Sailesh, seems like AI was really a natural curiosity for you right from the very, very beginning. And was there a look, AI has been a common theme in your life throughout your career. What was that instance, or what really convinced you? Okay, this is what I'm most passionate about, and this is what I want to follow.
I don't know if I can point to a single instance, but I think the closest I can come to is sort of working with the first set of personal computers, those IBM HCL personal computers in like 11th and 12th standard. So after 10th standard, I chose computer science as my special subject for the 11th and 12th. And during that time was the first instance I got to work with these personal computers. And I think that's when I fell in love with programs and trying to make things happen, and trying to see if there's a way in which you can create things that would look smart to you. There was a combination, let's put it this way, of both the computers arriving at the right time, plus a lot of the science fiction shows and whatnot being imported from Hollywood. I think that combination is what led me to start thinking about and dreaming about AI quite a bit.
Got it. And post NASA, seems like you met your current co-founders, Anand and Venki, and you joined them at a company called Kosmix. And later on, and Kosmix was acquired by Walmart Labs, which was really innovative, or a firm that was really adding innovation to Walmart, and currently it has become a massive organization. And later on, you founded a company called LocBox, which was acquired by Dropbox later on. Maybe can touch upon both the company, Sailesh. How did they come to be, and what was the experience like?
Sure, absolutely. Just one quick correction: LocBox was acquired by Square, the cash register company, and not Dropbox, I think, as you mentioned.
Got it.
So Anand and Venki, we have a sort of a long history together. Anand is a classmate of mine from IIT Madras. Venki is actually a few years our senior, also from IIT Madras. So all three of us are from IIT Madras. And so they were starting this company where they had this idea. At that time, Google was a pretty successful, massive search engine. But the challenge with Google was whenever you tried to search for something, all you got were those 10 links that were the first page. And it was your job as a human to click through these links and figure out what you were looking for. So say you were looking for some information about, a city, right? Let's say Delhi. Once you search for Delhi, then you get those 10 links. But then you are like, okay, what do I see in Delhi? Then you have to ask another question. So, what are the best places to see in Delhi? What is the weather like in Delhi? What is the food like? So by the time you finish, you have like some 20, 30 different questions, right? And that's what Google like search experience was that time. And my fellow founders and I, what we were thinking of was like, this is not the computer doing its work for you. This is you still doing a lot of work in order to find information about something. How about we train the computer to give us that kind of information all upfront in like a single 360-degree view? And so that's the reason why we started Kosmix. The idea for Kosmix was that the underlying search engine would not just understand your query, but understand what it is you are looking for. Oh, you're looking at Delhi. Maybe you want to travel there. Maybe you want to understand what the weather like might be there. Maybe you want to understand what kinds of touristy things, what language do they speak, what side of the road do they drive. There are many things so the system should automatically understand that context and then provide that answer for you. So it's a form of intelligence that today we take for granted, right? Today, whenever you search on Google, you get a lot of that information. But at that time, now this is 20 plus years ago, it wasn't possible. And so we thought we could create a new kind of search experience that provided these answers. And we were very successful. So there were two areas, travel and health, where this approach worked phenomenally well. And for a few years, we were the second most trafficked health information website in the world. It was a brand that we created called Right Health, and people really loved this comprehensive information. Rather than doing 10, 15 different queries, you come to the page, you search for the thing you're looking for, and you get a lot of information about it. So much so that several people later told us from Google that they watched us and copied a lot of what it is that we were developing, and that we were a little bit ahead of our time at that point. But as you might imagine, this approach towards building this sort of context and understanding of what people are looking for can be applied to many different things, not just health or travel, but even products. And so our generic technology that we created was exceedingly successful at a wide variety of things: products, social media. In fact, we were also one of the few companies who had access to the Twitter Firehose. Every single tweet that was being created was sent to us for us to figure out what to do with and create context. Because you cannot make sense of a million tweets a day. So how do you make sense of all of that information? That is something that we worked on quite a bit. And it was for that innovation that Walmart acquired us. And so we actually are the founders of Walmart Labs. Actually, we came up with the name Walmart Labs. Walmart at that time was trying to compete effectively with Amazon. And we came to them and said, hey, you want to acquire us? Just don't acquire us and make us a part of Walmart. Instead, let's create this new entity called Walmart Labs, which is where a lot of the innovation will get housed. And we will build Walmart Labs not just to the Kosmix team, but we'll grow this into a significant innovation center within Walmart. And so that's what we did. From the initial kernel of about 45 of us who created Walmart Labs, I think Walmart Labs is now like a few thousand people. We have acquired many companies, and we brought in many different technologies, and we brought a significant level of innovation within Walmart. I think by one measure, I think it was like by the second or third year after our acquisition, we added an additional incremental $2 billion in additional revenue to Walmart through some of the efforts we had made. So our acquisition had paid for significantly well for Walmart in many different ways. And my personal experience during that time also sort of took an enlarged turn, in the sense that I had seen this sort of transition from a very small startup, small number of people, going all the way to the world's largest company, being Walmart. I saw the full spectrum of a company's transition through a variety of stages, all the way to becoming a part of a big company. I also got to see a different side of the business that I had not seen before, which was understanding and evaluating markets, businesses, and companies. Because one of my responsibilities at Walmart was to go look for acquisitions, technology acquisitions that Walmart would then acquire to bring inside Walmart Labs. Mm-hmm. So I helped acquire 2 companies during that time. And that gave me a little bit more education to things like understanding a business, evaluating it, putting a price on it, figuring out how to integrate that company, and so on. So all of those experiences led me to want to become a founder of my own company. And a colleague of mine from Kosmix and I together then started this company called LocBox. And it was based on an observation that we had seen at Walmart, where only the largest companies were successfully able to market themselves online. And online, we saw, was the way of the future. Anything and everything that would happen needed to have an online presence. But only big companies were able to do that. Big companies were doing advertising on Google and Facebook and all these other places. What about the small and medium-sized companies? What about the store on the corner or the coffee shop at the end of the street? How are they going to project themselves, right? So that's how we started LocBox. LocBox was going to become that platform to allow small and medium-sized businesses to market themselves more effectively and efficiently. And then fast forward to early 2014, late 2013, early 2014, we were acquired by Square, the cash register company, for the reason that they had almost exactly the same customers. They were the cash register of that coffee shop or of that corner market. And we brought a very significantly value-added addition to them, where the merchants who are using these products could also combine that with marketing. And once you knew who your best customers are, your marketing becomes way more efficient. So it was a very synergistic acquisition for Square to have acquired us. And my co-founder and most of my team are at Square still. In fact, my co-founder recently became the chief product officer of Square. And so it's been a very impactful acquisition for him. I chose a slightly different path at that juncture, both for personal reasons as well as professional, and felt like I wanted to go back to my roots of starting something from scratch. And by that time, my other 2 founders of Rocketship had also left Walmart. So the 3 of us got together and started thinking about what we wanted to do next. And one of the ideas that they wanted to sort of pursue was investing, and to do investing in a very different way, because they had gone through their careers and have had a lot of success, but they wanted to sort of put that success into a way by which they could give back to the community, and they thought the best way was investing. For me, I was very excited by the large amount of data that was becoming available, and I was excited by the fact that on Wall Street, there were many different investors who are using data to effectively invest online and making billions of dollars. But this is now for public companies, right? So I always wondered why an equivalent version didn't exist for startups, which is what I was interested in. And so when my other 2 partners and I got together and discussed a variety of ideas, this seemed like the most compelling idea. Is there a data-driven way to find the most promising startups and invest in them? Like, for example, can I find the next Facebook through my data and invest in them? That was the question we asked ourselves. And so that's how Rocketship was born. I still wanted to keep some connection with space and rockets, so I named the fund Rocketship. My fellow partners allowed me to name the fund, so I named the fund Rocketship. But we also explained that name as saying, hey, we want to invest in companies that become rocket ships. So that's how the idea for Rocketship was born. I can tell you more about how Rocketship works, but I'll just quickly summarize Rocketship's journey today as we are 10 years old now, and we've been doing this since 2015. We have 3 funds. We manage over $250 million, and we are a global early stage investor. We have investments in 14 different countries. We have investments in over 20 different sectors. And we are big investors both here in the US as well as in India. In the last 5-7 years or so, we have invested more than $70 million in India, and we are very excited by our Indian investments. I'll pause here and I'll let you ask me a few more questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Sailesh. Look, as you mentioned, you've deployed 70 million into India, and you've made a bunch of amazing investments like Moglix, Dhan, of course, Jar, and bunch others. Shailesh, maybe tell us what got you excited about Indian technology ecosystem initially, and how has Indian technology ecosystem evolved over the years, and how has your excitement evolved about the Indian tech ecosystem? And one thing that's unique about you guys, there are a lot of global funds that are investing, or let's say foreign funds that are investing in India, but there are very few funds that are coming in early, like you guys, which is very unique. I can't name any other fund that is investing in India at, let's say, Series A and beyond. But yeah, would love to learn more around those areas, Sailesh.
Absolutely. So let's start off with once again sort of describing how Rocketship invests. So Rocketship, we collect as much data as is globally available about every single startup in the world. So we have one of the largest databases of startup activity in the world. It's currently about 475 terabytes of data. So enormously large data set. And then through this data set, we train machine learning models to identify what we think are going to be the most promising companies in the world. And the idea was to completely change the model of investing, where instead of startups coming to investors and pitching them and trying to convince them to give money, the model will be flipped, where we will find the most exciting startups. We will go to them proactively, and we will tell them, hey, we think you're going to be an enormously successful company, and can you please take our money? So it's a very different dynamic, and that's what we wanted to change. We wanted to change the dynamic where rather than startups coming to us, we go to startups. And so we started investing from this process, and our initial assumption was that we are in Silicon Valley, so we'll find a lot of companies here in Silicon Valley, or maybe at best the US, and we'll be investing in that. But this was a pretty significant eye-opening experience for us, that we started finding amazing companies all over the world. And one of the biggest surprises, now not so surprising, was the number of Indian companies that started showing up in our algorithms increased tremendously. We actually were a little surprised, to be clear. We actually checked and rechecked our algorithms, and we wanted to make sure people wouldn't look at this and say, hey, you guys are Indian, that's why Indian companies are showing up. We wanted to make sure there was a fundamental reason. And so the algorithms were all correct and clear, and it was truly something fundamental that was going on. So the next step was to understand what was happening in India at that time. Now, this is, like I said, 2015, 2016. We were trying to figure out what's going on, and we asked our friends in India, what's happening? Is there something fundamental? And they weren't very sure of what was going on themselves either. And this is now I'm talking investors even. And we started digging more and more and realized that India was going through a very fundamental change, right? In the initial consumer companies that had happened, the Flipkarts of the world, had started producing a very strong startup ecosystem that people are not recognizing yet. And the changes that they had made started translating itself into an ecosystem. So you started seeing the same sort of approach be demanded in B2B companies that were there in B2C companies. And then the biggest accelerant that happened was Reliance Jio. They launched in, I think, 2011, and they zero rated their phones in 2013. And that led to an explosion of phones in everybody's hands. I think they added like 100 million phones in people's hands in like a year or two. like which here in the US, that is like half the cell phone population in 1 year, right? So it's a tremendous change that was happening. And so India was going through multiple waves of innovation, and that's what our algorithms were seeing. So it gave us 2 points of confidence. One, it gave us confidence to invest in India because we knew the Indian ecosystem. We know, having been from India ourselves, that these were amazing opportunities in companies. So we started investing. And the other part was it validated our algorithms as showing what's happening currently. And so that's how we started investing. And what I can say to you now is India has exceeded our expectations every year, in that there have been waves of innovation that have been happening in India year after year after year. So, like I said, it started off with a consumer sort of revolution, and consumer wave split itself into e-commerce and payments and fintech. But then that consumer wave spread from there to all kinds of things like, beauty, cosmetics, you name it. It started spreading into many, many different sectors. Then came the education sector that got getting transformed from a consumer's perspective. And alongside that, there was a B2B transformation. Companies and factories and industries wanted to have the same sort of technology that consumers were using. So things like supply chains, procurement, manufacturing, those things started getting transformed. And so once you saw those waves, they were starting to build on top of each other. And right now, we think India is poised for a massive leapfrog. I think the global environment has given India the right ingredients. So you saw the whole sort of deflation happen in China. So now this China plus one strategy is giving India the best possible opportunity, whether it be a consumer, manufacturing, business, space, defense. All of those opportunities are available in India, and those are all the sectors we are investing in. So I'm super excited to say that India continues to be and will, for the near future, be a significant part of our investing process. And we are finding amazing companies in India, companies that are world class, that we are proud to say we are investors in, to anybody who wants to listen.
Mm-hmm. Sailesh, maybe you could give us, examples of 2 or 3 companies. How did you meet them? Maybe integrate the investing approach of Rocketship with it, and yeah, just walk us through, your entire investing decision and the cycle.
Sure. I'll give you one old example and a new example. One of our first investments in India was the company Moglix that you mentioned. So the thing that's very exciting for us is that the algorithms that we started building back in 2015, they have expanded in scope. So what was one algorithm is actually now 7 families of algorithms, and each of them has gotten revised multiple times. So we are in like the 8th or the 9th generation of each of those algorithms. So those algorithms are not just one sort of entity. There are many, many entities, each algorithm proposing different sets of companies. So the first algorithm that we built, the one that identified Moglix, was an algorithm that tried to predict a very near-term success measure. So when we started building these algorithms, people asked us, what are you going to try and predict, right? And if you say, oh, I want to try and predict whether the company is going to IPO or whether the company is going to become a unicorn, $1 billion startup, that's a great question to ask. But it's very hard to answer because those kinds of events, you look at the millions of companies, only a few thousand have reached that success, right? So from a machine learning perspective, it's very hard to build a system to learn from 2,000 examples when the vast majority of million examples are saying you're going to fail, right? So that's not very easy to build. The second aspect is those events take time. So when you have a startup, by the time it becomes an IPO capable company, that's like on average 7 to 10 years. Now, of course, companies like Zepto and others have done very, very rapid growth, and so there are examples that grow very quickly. But for the most part, most companies take 7, 8, 9 years to become successful. So once again, from a machine learning perspective, it's very hard to predict something. It's like trying to predict the weather in Mumbai 7 years from now, right? It's very hard for me to do things like that. Machine learning algorithms can't do that very well. And so we tried to create a set of algorithms that would predict near term how successful a company was going to be. 1 year from now, how well is it going to do? And so one of our algorithms said Moglix was going to be very successful within a year's time. And so that's what led us to reaching out. So we followed the process I earlier mentioned. We reach out to the company. So here again, we had the benefit of being from IIT because the founder of Moglix is also a fellow IITian, not from the same IIT, but fellow IITians sort of recognize each other a little bit. So he was like excited to get an email from us saying, hey, we think you're going to be very successful. So we got to talking. He really understood what we were trying to do, and we understood what he was trying to do in terms of building all of this software and smartness to the industrial ecosystem. So Moglix is basically a marketplace for industrial parts, all the way from like wires, nails, fasteners, paint, you name it, whatever a factory needs, you can find it on Moglix. And we saw that was a part of a trend of India really transforming itself. They were going to need all that. And what you could find in a consumer online store like Flipkart, you wanted the same behavior for your company as well, right? So we understood the match of that trend was very strong. And so we made that investment. We were, I think, the only outside investor. As you mentioned, we were the only non-Indian investor to invest in the company at that time. But then since then, others have certainly recognized how successful Moglix has been. And I think their last valuation was over 2.6 billion in terms of the kind of company they created. So it's been a tremendously successful company. And it was the earliest example of the transformation that we were seeing in India. Mm-hmm. The second company, and since it's a company that both you and I have a little bit more experience with, is Jar. So Jar is, in my opinion, both a very exciting company, but also a company that is still early in its potential. So let me describe how we found the company and why I think Jar has enormous potential. So once again, our algorithms found Jar, and this was an even more funnier conversation because they didn't believe us when we reached out saying our algorithms found you. Because we were non-US, non-Indian investors, even though we are of Indian origin, we were here. And they didn't actually believe that we were real or we were a legitimate investor. And so they checked on us. And when they started seeing that we had made these other investments in India, they got a little bit more confidence and sort of we started talking. And we had it was not just our algorithms showing that Jar was going to be very successful. We also saw this as a trend. Because until then, the common sort of outside India perspective of India was that even though India is 1.3 billion people at that time, Indian consumers were only the 60 to 70 million who lived in all the big cities. That was how people saw India. And we never believed that. And our data was showing that that was not the case. India is many, many different Indias, right? There is the tier 1 India, the ultra rich India, then there's tier 2, then there's the tier 3 and rural India. There's many Indias that were in play, and there were many companies targeting each of them. So our data was showing that India was ripe for a transformational opportunity that provided products for the middle 400 million, not the top 50, 60 million, not the rest rural 600 million, but that middle 400 million. Mm-hmm. And Jar was that example because I think almost every one of us has a very visceral understanding of the value of gold. We all have, grown up in India, seen gold ornaments in our temples, seen our moms and sisters and aunts all wear jewelry to weddings and all the various other ceremonies. So we have a sort of inherent understanding of the value of gold. And so Jar really clearly understood that this was what emotionally people were interested in when they wanted to save. And so we could see that in all of the numbers. We could see that in all of sort of the consumer usage and patterns that we were seeing with the Jar app. We also were very excited to see this is another clear example of how India is transforming itself. Those Jar founders, Misbah and Nischay, they are world-class founders. Not only do they understand their users and the product and the way to build software, they also understand how to build companies. They understand finances, they understand deal making, and they have the vision, and they know how to hire, right? These are all qualities that we look for and appreciate in Silicon Valley founders. We were finding, like I said, world-class founders, but from India as well. And so that combination is what led us to invest in JAR. And the last point I'll make about them, which I think is to illustrate the fact that we think they're still early in their potential, is India's story. Every large economy in the world has become enormously successful on the basis of its savings potential. So when a country starts saving and building that big flywheel of that savings can then be used to really leapfrog the country, because the fact that you have these savings means each family feels more confident. They're able to execute on their ambition and their wishes. They're able to take more risk. And that leads to more entrepreneurship, more company building, more growth, if you will. And all of that comes from that savings flywheel. Every economy till date has used that flywheel to become very, very successful. And I think if India is going to become that $20 trillion economy that the Prime Minister and others have been talking about, it's going to be on this enormous flywheel of savings. And I think gold is that enormous flywheel for a vast majority of people within India, right? We save with gold. And so that's why I think JAR is going to be a very important company for India in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, savings, it just empowers people. And if that mindset can be implemented throughout the country, and we're seeing this, the energy in India, the aspirations are so high. And plus, the country is just so young. It's Gen Zs are 370 million, more than the entire US population. And Sailesh, by the way, it's such an amazing approach. The fact that a fund reaches out to founders and recognizing their potential, maybe even before they would recognize their full potential. That's such a powerful thing to do. And by the way, this algorithm, can I buy it on subscription or? And imagine a world, Sailesh, later on, there's a fund which just invests through algorithm. It just reaches out to the investors, to the founders, and LPs can automatically just invest in that fund, and just the entire thing is just just on autopilot. Sailesh, if you were to pick one thing about the Indian technology ecosystem, where Indian technology ecosystem has an edge over the rest of the world, whether it's Silicon Valley, China, or others?
Sure. The fantastic part is India has several edges. But let me start with the most obvious one, the one you mentioned. India has the largest talent pool in the world. And most people don't realize it or underestimate this value significantly. But if you look at all the global companies, every single technology company has an India center, whether it be IBM or Intel or AMD or Apple or Nvidia, you name it, everybody has an India center. And that has led to Indian talent being trained and becoming the driving force in a lot of these companies, right? And so that talent, combined with the transformation that is happening with the startup ecosystem, is finally coming out and saying, I have learned a lot in Apple or in Nvidia or in IBM, but now I want to take that learning and build a company on my own. So we are about to see an explosion of startups in every single aspect. You name it, there's going to be a company for it. We are, in fact, most excited by areas like space and materials and whatnot, where traditionally it's been very hard to build companies, anywhere in the world, because even here in the US, a lot of those space companies only grew because of significant government funding. Whereas in India, I think we have the opportunity, because of the combination of a high quality of talent combined with relatively moderately lower cost, that we can produce world-class technology, world-beating technology at a fraction of the cost and become world leaders. So what we are super excited by is that combination of things coming together. The enormous unlocking of the talent, the timing of the startup ecosystem getting ready for an explosion, and the rest of the world is sort of pulling back or withdrawing when India has the opportunity to step forward, right? China has already gone down quite a bit. The US is doing okay, but still very slow in terms of growth. The only real growing economy, the fastest growing economy in the world is India. And so that's why it's super exciting that we're coming to this at the right time with the right ingredients, with the right opportunity, but all of that coming together with the right talent, with the right people. That's why we think India is going to be a tremendously exciting place for every kind of innovation, whether it be agriculture or materials or space or defense, you name it. I think we are going to make a tremendous impact. And a lot of people don't seem to believe this or distrust this, but I think in the next 10 to 15 years, there will be large global brands. When you think of planes, you think of Boeing and Airbus. Similar to that, there will be Indian brands that will be global, where this will be the best product out there, and it'll be an Indian company that you'll be buying. So that's what we are excited to see.
I love it. The energy is can be seen. It's coming through, Sailesh. And Sailesh, look, you've been bullish about India for the right reasons since 2014. You're from there, and you're in the US now, and you made a mark for yourself through various ventures. And you've been again, like, you've been involved in the Indian tech ecosystem for the last 10 years. What advice would you give to Indian diasporas, who have, let's say, recently or maybe have already made money, made fame, made name? How should they think about contributing back to the Indian tech ecosystem? In what ways can they be involved?
That's a very interesting and very timely question, because I think this is the right time for a lot of Indian diaspora to play their part. Because I think what we have in India, as I described, is that raw material, right? The talent, the opportunity, the skills, and whatnot. But at the same time, what you want is to not repeat the mistakes that the rest of the world has made, the US has made, or China has made. And a lot of us in the Indian diaspora, we have seen those mistakes. And we have that opportunity to contribute to India, saying, hey, let's do it this way and not repeat the mistakes of the US, right? Let's do something differently, right? And so that contribution, that advice, that guidance, followed by our own ability to invest, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time, in terms of mentorship and advice, I think would be the most important thing that we have to contribute. And in order to do that, I think we should spend time in India, because a lot of people have opinions about India sitting here reading what they see in the TV channels and newspapers and whatnot. But that's not really India. That's only India what others have chosen to portray. If you're in the diaspora, travel more often to India, see the change, that energy, that momentum that we're talking about. Again, everybody says this, but you have to be in India to realize how much of a difference UPI has made. It's unbelievable how easy it is to get through an airport today. In fact, I spend more time waiting in lines in US airports than in Indian airports. And I'm not even, talking about, small airports. I'm talking about large airports where there are millions of passengers. And yet India has solved those problems. So I think what we are missing is the identification of those true places in which, as a diaspora member, we can offer our guidance, but that guidance has to be grounded in what we are able to see and perceive. So if you are anywhere in the world in the Indian diaspora, come back home, experience the change that is happening in India, spend more time here, and then you will find ways to contribute, whether, as I said, whether it be in terms of investment, guidance, advice, or mentorship. I think the opportunity is vast for us.
Sailesh, we'll switch gears here. As I mentioned earlier, and gave you a heads up. My co-pilot, he's gonna get in, and he wants to know you. Who is Sailesh outside of work? Sailesh, we know you as a extremely talented techie, or you can call it understands machines really well. And over time, you've founded companies, you've sold companies, now you're an investor. What do your friends know you for? Who are you outside of work?
um, so my friends know me for 3 or 4 different things. One is I'm a big foodie. I like I like many different kinds of food. I'm a vegetarian, so that presents a little bit of a challenge. But beyond that, I like trying new things, especially in food, a lot, and then replicating that interest into cooking myself. So I like making many different countries' recipes, but also like traveling to other countries and eating their vegetarian cuisine for the most part, and so I enjoy that quite a bit. So one of the things that they see to me is always a foodie risk taker, a person who will try things, especially when it comes to food. Um, the second thing is part of being an investor is you have to be very curious and you have to be able to want to learn a lot about things. So not only do I read a lot, but I also discuss whatever I'm reading a lot with a lot of people. So I have several friend groups where we end up having late night arguments or discussions for a long period of time. And this is almost very similar to how the chai pe charcha happens in India, right? So that's exactly what I do. But I enjoy it a lot. And, my friends seem to tolerate my opinions as well. So that's another part that I think they like me for. The third, which I used to do more of, but not so much now, is I've been a very outdoorsy person. I like nature a lot. In fact, nature and specifically astronomy have been have been things that I've been captivated about. I still remember the first time I went to this U.S. state called Colorado. It's called a big sky country for a particular reason. The air there is very clear. And when you're in a little bit of an altitude, you can see 10 to 100 times more stars in the sky than anywhere else. And so, seeing the Milky Way for the first time and seeing all those stars, that's been an amazing experience. So I've been a very outdoorsy person until recently. Things have gotten a little busier. When you're a dad and you have kids and whatnot, so you get busy with life. But until then, I used to go to national parks a lot. I used to hike a lot. And spend a lot of time outdoors. So that's a little bit about myself from a personal front. The one last thing I'll leave you with, which I don't know if it's as appropriate or not, but that specific aspect of being a foodie, I'm a massive, massive dessert person. So I love sweets. And I love everything that's an Indian sweet. I love ice creams and other things and cakes as well. But I massively love everything that comes from India as a sweet. Every state, every country has its own sort of sweets, but I think India has the best in my opinion.
I think it'll be hard, but Sailesh, one dessert that you like the most?
So it has to be one dessert per region. So in South India, in Tamil Nadu, where I'm from, the dessert I like the most is a laddu called Rava Laddu. Just across the border in Andhra, the one I like the most, or Andhra or Karnataka, is Mysore Pak, right? So these are a few of the desserts I like a lot.
Sailesh, I'm grateful to you for making the time to come on the podcast and really share with us your incredible journey so far. Thank you so much, Sailesh.
My pleasure, Shiva. It's been a lot of fun having this conversation with you, and I hope your viewers will enjoy the little tidbits that I had to share, especially about my excitement for India.